Yeah, welcome to Monday Meals, y'all. Happy Monday and happy Women's History Month. Um, Definitely looking forward to celebrating and uplifting some of our leaders here in the community this month. So stay tuned with some celebratory posts from Oakland Rising, and looking forward to participating in any events that's going on. But wanted to welcome our guest for today. We're going to be talking about knowing your rights and how to keep our communities safe, both in the school districts and communities facing evictions and illegal evictions, and many of those people happen to be immigrants and some undocumented people who are being targeted, at the moment. And so, yeah, I just want to give everybody an opportunity, to introduce themselves and the work that you're doing here in the Bay Area. So just want to introduce Sasha um,
Hmm.
Ritzie-Hernandez, and make me know if I said that incorrectly, um, who is an Oaklander and also Afro-Indigenous non-binary immigrant. Sasha is an educator, community organizer, and dedicated to LGBTQA advocacy, education, justice, and immigrant rights. Sasha is also a former OUSD student who navigated the school system as an undocumented, unhoused, and English language learner. Experiences that fuel their passion for equitable education and systematic justice. So just want to thank you and give you an opportunity to further introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I also get have the pleasure of being the executive director for Somos Familia, which is a nonprofit based here in Oakland that supports the LGBTQ community and their families to create a world where there's more love and acceptance for our community. Right now, we currently work with youth throughout our city to support the acceptance. Um, of their identity in the school system. And we also work directly with organizations that prevent HIV. And so we also focus on preventing HIV for our young people and our community that is the highest impacted by HIV/AIDS. And we also work directly with families throughout the city, just working with them to ensure that they know their rights, not just because the majority of the families who have children of the LGBTQ community in this district are undocumented, but they're also monolingual speakers. And Somos Familia, it's a very important organization to have in the Bay Area because all of the programming is bilingual. Actually, our first language here is Spanish, so most of our programming inherently is in Spanish, which is a resource that is very limited in our communities. We actually the first organization that focuses directly with LGBTQ families that is completely in Spanish, and we are often working in creating a more inclusive Spanish. We've worked with several universities to work on how we can make Spanish a little bit more inclusive because it can be very bound to gender. So that's some of the work that we're doing. But right now, our focus is to ensure that LGBTQ community is included as part of the sanctuary district policy in Oakland that can really impact our students and our families as well as our educators, because we got to think about our LGBTQ educators who are going into our schools every day and that are also victims of discrimination.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that is being done, particularly for the LGBT community that's often left out of the conversation when we're talking about immigrant rights and protections. Um, Also want to acknowledge Monique Berlanga, who is the executive director. And please, everyone, if I am mispronouncing anything incorrectly, please feel free to correct me so that I can correctly pronounce everyone's name. But Monique is the executive director of Centro Legal. And I don't have your bio here, Monique. So if you would like to introduce yourself and your partner, your business partners, um, introduce them as well,
Yep.
definitely would love that.
Yeah, hi, and then thank you so much for the previous speaker for the work that you're doing. It's really, really inspiring right now. So just thank you. We'd love to connect more. So Cheney, if you've accomplished nothing else, you've now made this connection. So my name is Monique Berlanga. I'm the executive director at Centro Legal de la Raza. Um, a little bit about Centro. So we've been here rooted in the Fruitvale district in Oakland since 1969, providing culturally responsive free legal services to the community. The kinds of services we provided have changed over the years based off of what the community needs around us. When we were first created, we did a lot of anti-police brutality work, working with conscientious objector status applications, et cetera, and have just continued to change based off of the changing community and what the needs are. So right now we have four main program areas. We have a youth law academy, which is our pipeline program where we are trying to build more lawyers who come from the communities we serve to help diversify the bar in California and beyond. And then we have an employment law practice where we work with a lot of low income, low wage workers, especially in the hotel industry and the restaurant industry. And then we have a day labor project. We have a very big eviction defense practice where we, do a lot of homelessness prevention and anti-displacement work across Alameda County and Contra Costa counties. And then we have an immigration practice. I'm going to pass it to Avi, my colleague, in a second to talk more about our immigration work and what we do. But just to say, right now, our organization is really focused on helping to support the efforts to reactivate a CLIP, which is the Alameda County Immigration Legal and Education Partnership, which serves as our county's rapid response network in the event that there is ICE activity in our communities. And it also, includes a real readiness and know your rights component, which is, kind of an all hands on deck effort right now to try to make sure that everybody in our county is aware of their rights should there be immigration enforcement activity in our community. So thank you, Cheney, for having us. And yeah, we'll now pass it to my colleague Abby to talk a little bit about our immigration practice. And introduce herself. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Introduce you. Yeah.
totally fine. Hi. Well, I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. As Monique said, my name is Abby Sullivan Engan. I'm one of the co-directing attorneys of the Immigrants Rights Program here at Centro. Um, in addition, Monique talked about a CLIP that is a huge focal point for us right now, really ramping up our responsive efforts in the event of immigration enforcement activity in Alameda County. We also have an immigration legal practice that we have been, we have thousands of clients, and the main we have two main areas of focus. One is removal defense, so deportation defense for folks who are in removal proceedings where the government is, actively trying to deport them, as well as affirmative legal services for people who are not in immigration court, in fighting a deportation in court, but nonetheless either have no immigration status at all or have a status that they can, apply for a different form of legal protection that will sort of solidify their ability to remain here. So we really, make it a sort of pillar of our practice to be partnering with the immigrant community, partnering with clients, helping, a collaboration and partnership as opposed to kind of a transactional lawyer-client relationship. And we're really happy to be here and talk about either the know your rights information in the event of ICE activity or any other questions about the legal services that are available.
Wow. Thank you all so much for the work that you are doing. One of the things that I appreciate about living in the Bay Area, particularly, is having access to these types of services, which you don't have everywhere. I can remember seeing the presence of Central Legal in the Fruitvale pretty much all my life. I used to go. They also provided other services through the county, such as vision and dental. And I took advantage of those as a child, as somebody whose family relied on a lot of county services and different things. And so just want to discuss a little bit more, Sasha. because there's a resolution, right, that Somos Familia has presented to the city around stronger protections and sanctuary for immigrant students, particularly LGBTQ. Would you mind going into a little more detail about what this particular resolution is? And I'm sorry, this went to our OUSD Board of Supervisors, not the city, because there's a big difference.
Right. So basically, the way that we understand the current century resolution, which is 1617-08089, that is a policy that was created during the first Trump administration that wanted to ensure that undocumented families will be protected, particularly our students, and ensuring that we were a sanctuary district that didn't allow ICE to come into our schools. But at this moment, we recognize that not only is our undocumented families being impacted, but there's a very specific message that is targeting our LGBTQ students. And there's an intersectionality that exists here in Oakland where we have undocumented students who are part of the LGBTQ community. And so we want to ensure that our students are also included into the resolution. So prior to this new edition of the resolution, there was no mention of the LGBTQ community in the resolution. So if it passes, not only do we want it to be mentioned, but as Somos Familia, we also are trying to keep our leaders accountable by reaching out to the board members and saying, what is the plan of action? Because adding us and saying our name in a resolution is not going to be enough. So wanting to know exactly, as an organization, we created a letter that went out. Actually, Oakland Rising was one of the organizations that supported our letter to go out to the board members requesting not only that they pass this resolution and that they add the LGBTQ community, but that they give the community also a very concrete plan on how these protections will be long term. Because I don't know if you all know this, but there was one individual in the district that was assigned to work particularly with our community, with the LGBTQ community, but that position is no longer here.
through
So
OUSD.
yes. So there was one person that was in charge of the programming and ensuring that the families that were part of the LGBTQ community had their resources and their support. However, that position is no longer here. So now it's included into the wellness and healthcare aspect. So Somos Familia is supporting those efforts to ensure that there's a visibility for the LGBTQ community in those spaces. Like we're having GSA Day on the 4th and the 7th of this month through OUSD. And so Somos Familia is including themselves because we want to make sure that this information is in Spanish, that is available in other languages, that we continue to advocate for language access and for that visibility, even though there's no specific person. So we are also saying to the district, we are here with the expertise, we're here to support, we're here with the love and the passion that exists for our community. So take us as a resource. So that's what we're also planning to do more of, is being in partnership with Somos Familia and OUSD and other organizations. We're also lucky enough that this letter that was sent out to the board was also signed by the teachers union. So having the support of teachers that recognize how important it is to protect LGBTQ students and also their LGBTQ staff, it means the world to us because there's a need. The other thing that we're working on, and I was really excited to see Centro Legal being here because we're actually working on a California student LGBTQ Bill of Rights, if you will, that we want to make it beautiful and amazing and make it like actual posters that can go in all of our schools so that our students know that they have the right to be out in school if they want to not be outed to their families, that they have the right to be themselves and show their gender identity the way that they choose to, that they also have the right to a bully-free school, and that is in the right. And so we want to we want to partner, and we have partnered in the past with law firms to create these sort of things, but I think that that's what we need right now. A conscious, informed community is going to be really hard to harm and fool. And so that's what we're doing is awareness, 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 know your rights, be informed. Somos Familia also, with the red cards that came out as a result of, needing support if immigration officers show up to your doorstep. Somos Familia is also distributing them. We actually mailing them to people as well as just physically dropping them off if they need to. So that is also on our Instagram. If people want to register, we can always send them to their home for their protections. I know a lot of people are fearful to be outside, and this is the moment where we want to be there for our community.
Wow, this is some amazing work that I wish existed when, I was a little closeted teen in in school. And
Yeah.
now more than ever, it's important for all of us to know our rights. But what gives me actual hope is the youth in the future because they are more well equipped than we are as far as the access that they have. I actually wish they could have voted. We might have had a different a different outcome. Let's lower the voting age, but the more equipped not just the youth, but everyone is, the better we can make informed decisions. And it's really important for people to have these informed decisions around how we can protect immigrants because Oakland, is the home of many, many communities here. And we need to know how we can watch out for each other and, offer that support. And so, uh, Monique and Abby, the work that's being done over, with Centro Legal, housing is a big issue here in Oakland, and keeping folks housed in general can 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 be an issue, right? When it comes to eviction rights with immigrant communities, what are some of the steps that you all do that is, might be different for people who are documented?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, and thank you.
Mhm.
I think we serve everybody here at Centro, right? So, we've long served the undocumented community. And I think the most important thing for folks to know is that you have the same housing rights as everyone else, whether you're documented or not, whether you have a written lease or an oral lease. The laws still apply and they still protect you, and you can still, come to Centro Legal and we can provide you with support. So I guess, nothing's really changed there, right? But I think the more we can reinforce that message, just generally that everybody has constitutional rights, right? Like everybody, the law is designed to protect everybody equally. Of course, we're making some changes in terms of how we inform folks of existing law, right? If your landlord threatens to call ICE on you, for instance, or retaliates against you or discriminates against you in some way, that is
Right.
against the
And
law,
I don't want
right?
to cut you off. That has happened, right? People have
Absolutely.
experienced to where landlords will, through intimidation, will threaten calling ICE.
Absolutely. Like when I was doing a lot of eviction defense in court, I would have families who would, we'd have a really strong case. Maybe they had habitability issues, mold, rats, had a really righteous case, but wouldn't show up in court because the landlord called the night before and gave them a threat. And I understand that, if you're having to choose between the two things, that fear is real. I can tell folks, hey, yes, we've got an entire immigration legal team that can support you in your case, but that family has to make that decision in that moment. And, I understand that. But yeah, it happens all the time, more than you would think. Yeah.
And I know that if you want to maybe go into detail, now Alameda County, with the help of Supervisor Nikki Bass and Marquez, we were just able to secure funding that it will specifically go towards immigrant protections, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Abby, would you like to go into detail about, maybe how some of those funds will be used to go towards protections?
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. Well, we're really excited and grateful that the county is supporting not only, immigrant legal services in the form of what I mentioned before of deportation defense, legal representation for folks in removal proceedings, but also um, money to help Centro and some partner organizations rebuild a network that we had launched during the first Trump administration. That's ACLIP, Alameda County Immigration Legal Education Partnership. So essentially the model of ACLIP is that we have a hotline. It is currently staffed from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, where if you believe you are witnessing ICE in our communities, the first thing is to, before you kind of have a knee-jerk reaction and call the hotline, just make sure that it's actually ICE as opposed to the Oakland Police, the Hayward Police, the Alameda County Sheriff, because one thing that we are seeing in these times is there's understandably a lot of fear, and people are kind of jumping to make reports of ICE that turn out not to actually be ICE, right? So once you are either pretty sure it's ICE or certain it's ICE, we have working with Faith in Action East Bay staff who are answering those hotline calls and helping the caller verify whether or not it's ICE. So they're trained to help you assess, is this truly ICE, or it could be technically Border Patrol also in our communities. And once that's verified, we have a rapid response system that is triggered. And we have an attorney who is a removal defense immigration attorney who's able to intervene as quickly as they can get there, and work with the person who's subject to the ICE enforcement to help them exercise their rights, intervene before an arrest can happen, or if it's after the arrest, then intervene before the person can be swiftly sent to an out of state or out of county facility, and all with the goal of really interrupting that pipeline to deportation process. So in addition to those kind of emergency response legal services, we're also setting up some proactive legal services where we're identifying people who are most vulnerable to deportation based on the history of their immigration cases, and trying to proactively work with those folks to mitigate that vulnerability to potential ICE enforcement activity.
Great.
Well, I
I
want to
have a
add one
question.
thing.
Oh,
So in terms
please.
of just, well, I do the business end of it. But yes, in terms of the funding, we're really, really thrilled of, the recommendations that came out of the ad hoc committee, right? And I think there's just so much potential there to really keep our eye on these issues, in the long term, right? As opposed to what happened last Trump administration, where, everybody created, and we had these big lifts of creating these big efforts and networks, and then it kind of went away. And now we're back in responsive defensive mode. So, excited about that. But just to say we expect and we hope that the funding recommendations the contracts will actually be coming to the Board of Supervisors next Tuesday on the 11th for a vote to formally allocate those funds for these various projects too. So everybody out there, March 11th is the big day, and we would appreciate all your support.
Yes, and no, this is exciting news because Centro Legal was unfortunately a part of the budget cuts, through the city of Oakland, and so you all had lost, some vital funding that you need to continue the work. So definitely grateful to the members of Board of Supervisors that really fought to get that money to make sure that organizations like yours and others that's doing the work to keep people safe can actually stay operating and provide what's needed to do that work. um, and speaking of the city and the county, also this is a sign that we do have leadership that's fighting for us right now. Because currently, some cities and counties are afraid to, fight for their constituents because they're scared that Trump will strip more funding. And we need people that's actually aren't afraid of Trump, that will continue, doing what's needed. And so, speaking of the city and county, and Sasha, you can answer this question. Anyone, it's open to everybody. What would we like to see in this? We have a mayoral race. We're in a special election, right? We have multiple people running for both mayoral and district seats. What would you like to see? And Sasha, I'm going to ask this because of the community that you are serving. What would you like to see the next Oakland mayor prioritize as far as LGBTQ protections?
And more resources, absolutely. And one thing that I want to throw out there is our figure, and is that only 1% of philanthropy goes to LGBTQ organizations. So that's why we're so far and few. Like, we are the people that get the least amount of money. So funding is always a challenge. So ensuring that there would be some potential funding for maybe a trans center. We need an organization that is supporting our trans communities. There's nothing like that here. And that's why Somos Familia. So one of the things that we did, we actually expanded our programming. Initially was families and LGBTQ community in general, but we actually recognized that our trans community has some challenge to, there are the individuals that are experiencing the most challenges when it comes down to housing, when it comes to discrimination at work, at school. So I think for us, we recognize this is a gap that even if Somos Familia can do a little, that will be a real beneficial for our community. So we actually developed a program that is specifically to the trans community that we hope that eventually can become its own organization, like our sister organization. So yeah, I would like for them to take in consideration the community that is most impacted at work, and all these other areas. But I think that having, like, we have an LGBTQ center, but if we had something that was very specific to our trans community, I think that that could be really helpful for us. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And when we think of housing and our, LGBT communities, especially our trans communities, the data shows that majority are Black. And when it's for LGBT communities, it's Black, queer, and trans people who are the most vulnerable and have the most housing insecurities. And so across the board, housing is important. But yes, to your point, the most vulnerable is included in the LGBTQ community. Um, uh, Monique and Abby, same question, because you are working with communities as well that are facing the same, issues. Housing insecurity has been a decades long issue here in Oakland. And so as we, have this special election coming up, numerous people, would like to lead the city. What would you like to see them prioritize?
Well, yeah, well, I was going to say I'll speak to, I can speak to how to housing generally. Maybe I can pass it to Abby to speak to, and then if we could, wave a magic wand, what would that look like right now to support our communities? In terms of the housing piece, I would just love to see leadership take a prevention approach, right? Like, we've done the numbers, because that's what you have to do in our industry, and it costs us maybe $2,500 to prevent an eviction of a family in Oakland, right? But once somebody is evicted and they become homeless, it's going to, if you're just looking at dollars and cents, this is, hundreds of $1,000s, and there's just not enough housing to get somebody rehoused, right? So just to say, I would love to see our city focus on prevention. Prevention is always the first thing that gets caught, but it's the most cost-effective, impactful solution. Also, of course, increases in, tenant protections, always strengthening the just cause protections and the rent control, because if we can keep people in rent controlled housing, that is our largest stock of deeply affordable housing. Like, we're not going to build enough affordable housing to solve this housing crisis anytime soon. So the more we can keep people in their rent controlled housing, the better, because once somebody is kicked out or vacates their rent controlled housing, the landlord can reset the rent to any amount, and it's permanent. So we've lost that rent controlled housing unit forever, right? So just to say, prevention, 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 and strengthening tenant protections is what we would love to see the next leadership do. in terms of housing. And Abby, I don't know if you want to say anything about, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all aware that many communities right now, and definitely immigrant communities, are under an assault by the federal government. So any actions the city can take to stand with the communities that are subject to these assaults. I think with respect to immigrant communities, it is so clear that there's especially more newly arrived immigrant communities in Oakland particularly. It's almost 50-50, and at some months even a majority of the new immigrants that are enrolling in the schools in Oakland are actually, they don't even speak Spanish fluently. They speak an indigenous language from Guatemala or another Latin American country. So I think anything the city can do to make services more accessible for immigrant communities, including, you know, culturally responsive and linguistically competent services for Spanish speakers, indigenous language speakers, other speakers of other languages that are settling here in Oakland, but also providing you know, case management and wraparound services for communities that have many of whom have fled severe violence and instability in their home countries and are arriving in Oakland only to learn that in order to sign up for healthcare, you have to visit the same office 3 different times because everybody sends you home with a different instruction, you know. So just any kind of case management support to fully integrate into the daily life in Oakland, it really is evident to me. One of the reasons I do this work, it's evident to me that the folks that we serve are such incredibly determined, resilient, strong people, and we just need to have the supports available for them to, you know, kind of let that materialize into being just incredibly impressive members of our society and community.
Definitely, we need to have more preventative services. Keeping people housed prevents them from, you know, being unhoused. And I had another question actually, and Abby, I think this would be a question for you, being that you do a lot of legal services for youth, and just in general. Aside aside from housing, are there any priorities or support that us as a community should be looking at in regards to keeping, you know, youth protected from ICE and any harassment, you know, against immigration? I know earlier y'all had mentioned people are afraid to call the police or get involved in different things. But if someone is in danger and they happen to, you know, be documented, what can the police can and cannot do
Mm,
in regards to interactions with people? They can't just take folks because they're undocumented,
right.
right? And so what steps, especially youth, should they be taking to ensure their overall safety from law enforcement?
This is a great question. So I guess what I'd like to take a step back and start with, in California, we do have a state law that really restricts law enforcement's ability to cooperate with ICE and provide immigration to immigration authorities. So we are very fortunate to live in a state with that state law protection, because a lot of states don't have that. And in fact, they have the opposite. They have laws that encourage police to collaborate and cooperate with ICE. So in California, there are very limited exceptions to the rule that when police arrest somebody, they're not allowed to notify ICE of that person, the fact that that person is in their custody. They're not allowed to essentially do ICE's homework for them and do an investigation into that person's immigration status. Um, but I think even putting that aside, I do want to, I think a really important message that we're trying to spread here, Centro and in the immigrants' rights movement generally, is to lead with power, not panic, around ICE, the possibility of ICE being more present in communities under this administration, right? Because if you know your rights in the event of ICE contact, you are so much more likely to remain safe with your family than if you don't know your rights. So I think just the main rights I would just drill in for everybody to know and really believe and practice exercising those rights are: think of ICE as just like anybody else on the street. If you're in public and ICE walks up to you and they start asking you questions, you have every right to just say, I'm not going to answer your questions. I don't wish to speak to you. The tricky thing is you don't want to run away, because that will make them suspicious that you are engaged in some kind of criminal activity. But simply, you might have to say it more than once, but simply telling an ICE official, I don't wish to speak to you, is such a powerful thing to protect your own rights, right? And then you can also ask them, am I free to leave? Right? And if they don't have any basis to be arresting you, then you are free to leave, and they will have to let you walk away, right? So not speaking to them is sort of the first important rule. The second one to me would be, um, if you do end up in their custody, they might ask you to sign a document. It is very important to know that you should not sign a document without knowing what it is. You have the right to ask to speak to a lawyer before signing any document. Sometimes those documents are essentially a self-deportation order. It's agreeing to be deported. So it's very, very important not to sign a document without first speaking to a lawyer and understanding what it says. And then finally, if you're in your home, or if you're a business owner at your business, ICE cannot enter your home or your business unless you give them consent. Now, this, I think, is true of regular police also. It's hard for people to believe that if the police bang at your door, you can tell them, no, thank you, I don't want you to come in. But that very much is the constitutional rights that we all have in this country. We don't have to allow law enforcement into our homes or our businesses. A lot of times people wonder, well, what if ICE has a warrant? If they have a warrant that is signed by a judge, and that warrant describes your home or your business as the place that judge has given them authority to search, then that warrant gives them authority to enter your home. It is almost certain that they will not have a warrant signed by a judge. So I don't want to get too much into what the different warrants look like, but if you can just really internalize that in order for ICE to come into my home without my consent, they have to have a warrant that was issued by a judge and signed, and it says you are allowed to enter this person's home at this address. It is almost certain that ICE will not have that document. So those are just three important rules to know to exercise your rights in the event of a confrontation with ICE.
Those are some really good points. And thank you, especially for sharing about businesses, because we have a lot of small businesses here that employ undocumented workers. And they need to know that you can keep your workers protected. You don't have to allow anyone into your place of business. You don't have to allow them to question your employees. And you don't have to answer questions about your employees to anyone as well. And so those are
Yeah,
all.
just
Uh,
sorry, one thing
yeah.
I want to clarify about businesses is, if you do run a business that has publicly open spaces, so if you have an area in your business that anybody in the public is welcome to go into, ICE is permitted to go in just like anybody else can go into those spaces, right? But what's important as a business owner is to have spaces that are clearly designated as spaces that aren't open to the public, right? ICE can't walk in behind the counter into your kitchen at your bakery and start talking to your staff, right? But they can be in the main area where customers can be also. So if you are a business owner, it's important that you think about how to designate those areas that ICE is not allowed to enter without your permission.
And also just want to add, we have more information on details, and we have an upcoming actual presentation we're doing in partnership with Supervisors Tam and Fortunato Bass about this topic. You can go to acilep.org for all the info on that too.
Great. And please feel free to send us information. Would love to spread the word about that. And that was actually going to be my next question. Um, in ways that we could, further follow the work that you all are doing. Is there any upcoming meetings that the public should know about that we could attend to support? Sasha, are people still able to support and sign on to the resolution from Somos Familias?
Yes. So we are going to go. One more petition is going to go out, and this one is going to be for students. So, like I said, we're going to have GSA Day on the 4th and also the 7th. So we're trying to get students to sign the petition. As of right now, we already sent out the letter, and so a couple of the board members. I wanted to mention when you said earlier about how important it is for representation. We have the first, like, we have an open queer board member that is so supportive of this resolution. Is insane. Like, she has been a real partner in building this. Valerie Batchelor, who's a representative for District 6. So when people say that representation matters, that's what we're talking about. She has been the person that has helped lead this work because she recognizes that the work that she does in her personal life, in her community, also impacts what's going on in our schools. And so I just wanted to say that I want to also see someone that is willing to recognize that we are a very diverse city and that we speak multiple languages. Language access is one of the things that Somos Familia fights for every day by creating spaces where we speak multiple languages, where we provide that space. And that doesn't always happen. There was a recent press conference where there was talked about immigration, but that information didn't go to all of the communities that needed to hear that message. So here, having more, I know Centro Legal was talking about mom and other languages that are very permanent here in Oakland that need to be addressed. But in terms of the work that we're trying to do, is we're going to continue to show up to our board meetings. We are not sure when the resolution is going to be passed, but if they stay connected to Somos Familia Bay on our Instagram, we do offer. So the services that we offer weekly is we have our youth program that happens every week, every Thursday. We have a youth program that focuses on healing, that it focuses on mental health support, as well as advocacy and leadership development. And then on Thursdays, on Tuesdays, they will meet with families and we do sort of the same, the leadership development, mental health support, because we do have this aspect of Somos Familia where we train our members to become facilitators, to have those really uncomfortable conversations. It takes people who have that experience. So we train our members to have those conversations in community every Tuesday for our families and every Thursday for our students, and we do that every week. And then our registration forms are in our Instagram, and then anytime that something comes up, we try to give resources or weight that people can plug into whatever challenge is happening. Like with the fires in LA, we were able to collaborate with other organizations to send people to donate. So it's not just about the LGBTQ community. This is about keeping everybody safe. And we just want to be included in that work. That said, we don't want to take anybody else away from the work. We want to just be included and seen as a partner and seen as someone that is here to contribute. But those are the things that we have going on right now. And then when more things come, please follow us on Instagram because you will see. We're kind of loud sometimes.
Yes, follow them on Instagram, Somos Familia Bay.
Yes.
On IG. Check out the work and please look for upcoming meetings to where it could support. And Oakland Rising will continue to support and spread the word about the work that's being done. Uh, Monique and Abby, can you repeat what event you all have coming up and any other further meetings or actions that the public can come support, call, write?
Oh, there are so many right now. I feel like, right now we are all of the people in this work are really battling right now for the resources, for the visibility, right, for all of these urgent issues. So again, aclip.org is the website that's got a calendar of the various Know Your Rights events happening throughout the county. If you have an event you'd like us to post on it, please, do let us know. There's a contact address on there. We also have new ACLIP social media. So we're asking folks to try to go and follow on Instagram and on Facebook the ACLIP sites, and that's where we're providing updates on Know Your Rights, or whether there is ICE activity, confirmations or non-confirmations, right? If we're able to do that there too. So we're trying to spread the word on the ACLIP social media.
And
Um,
is that a county coalition?
it is, yes. So it's the Alameda County Immigration, Legal, and Education Partnership, which we're, kind of building the plane as we're flying. We're trying to fundraise and get resources together, but also, the hotline is open, as Abby mentioned earlier, Monday through Friday, 6 to 6. So, we're doing our best to try to coordinate and put all these resources together with the coalition. So, you can find out more on that page. Also, just in terms of, upcoming public meetings tomorrow, there's going to be a vote at the Oakland City Council to fund Oakland Housing Secure, which is the city's anti-displacement program through a coalition of providers. So, any support, there's some flyers we're going to be posting on Centro social media, on East Bay Community Law Center's social media, et cetera, for tenants to support that effort tomorrow. Like I mentioned, next week at the county is the funding package for the immigrants' rights work across the county on the 11th at the Board of Supervisors. And I also heard this morning that on the 18th of March, there's going to be an informational report on all of the existing sanctuary laws in Oakland at Oakland City Council too. So I would encourage folks to attend that, so that we can all stay informed there too. And yeah, I'll pass it. I don't know, Abby, if there are specific events.
So we don't have events that are open to the public coming up. There is, as Monique mentioned, on the 5th, there is at the Board of Supervisors, an event that is for organizations to register for, to learn about how to create a policy to protect your organization against immigration enforcement. And then starting this month, we're bringing back at Centro monthly legal orientations. These are primarily for people who are in removal proceedings in immigration court. But just wanted to flag that if the first one is going to be March 20th, it is going to be by registration only, and we're going to be having these on a monthly basis to help people who are navigating this very, very complicated deportation court process without a lawyer. So lots of know your rights events coming up regularly. We just and those will be posted on the ACLIP website as they're scheduled. For some of them are geared at individuals who want to understand their own rights, as well as service providers who want to understand how to best support their immigrant constituents during this time.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, want to reiterate, tomorrow there is a city council meeting. Save Our Services, Eviction Defense, and the organizations that has come together to advocate for that is, of course, Centro Legal, Unity Council, East Bay Community Law Center. And this meeting is tomorrow at 3:30. You can also find the details on the Oakland Rising page, as we've been sharing and supporting this effort. And if you cannot make it in person, you can write or join in via Zoom. But it's going to take all of our voices to make sure that we can prevent more homelessness and also get more people off of the pavement into housing. And so just want to thank all three of you for joining today, and for your time and your knowledge and sharing everything. Appreciate it. And also, if there's anything that you want to close out to say, feel free to do so.
Well, one last thing, just in terms of sharing resources. So we have the aclip.org website, which we're hoping, can be kind of a central point. If you're experiencing any kind of instability with your housing, whether that's, you need information about habitability issues, your landlord's threatening to kick you out, rent increase, etc., we operate another website, ac-housingsecure.org. And that's kind of a one-stop shop for all of the different drop-in clinics we have for housing. If you just, you've received some kind of letter from your landlord and needing someone to look at it, we have clinics every week that you can drop in and do that. And so that calendar's there, and there's also a lot of Know Your Rights videos there too. So if the more you can all help us spread the word about these resources, the more folks we can keep, protected and safe. And thank you for your work, Janie, too. It's like all of these things we're doing. We can always count on Oakland Rising to help support our efforts and to, help us with this kind of visibility. So just to say, you all are playing such a critical role right now, and thank you so much for your work.
Much appreciated.
Agreed. And also, Somos Familia is always open to offer workshops to organizations, schools, any districts that want to learn about LGBTQ rights in the classroom, in the school, in the community, as well as anything in relationship to the LGBTQ community that people like the fundamentals, gender, identity, just the basics. We're happy to do that, but we're also happy to do Know Your Rights. So reach out to Somos Familia, and we're happy to do a workshop for y'all.
Right, I'm going to be reaching out. Well, thank you again and have a wonderful week. You take care of yourselves as we are in special election season mode. So preserve your energy. And thanks again. And thank you for
Thank you.
everybody who joined us today.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Cool. So, kind of to get started, we wanted to intro to the IVE model for people who haven't, been working in the voter world. It's called integrated voter engagement. Is meant to kind of bridge together what people have like always been doing, just like advocating in our communities, door knocking, doing, just like outreach and talking to people with voter engagement. And so historically, there's like base building community organizations, and then there's like voter outreach organizations that really only come through when it's like election season and are doing like, focusing on like my work is around voter registration or like turning people out to vote yes or no on specific things. And so there's been like lots of studies on what is actually effective in turning people out to vote or getting people engaged in the like electoral process. And it has been proven that, coming to someone's door and saying, vote yes on Measure A once a year doesn't actually create new voters or consistent voters. And doesn't actually get people plugged into their communities and doesn't actually create long-term voter power. And so organizations that were focusing on getting working class, low-income people of color out to vote, people who don't normally vote, were noticing these patterns and started to really look at the ways that are effective. And people found that when community-based organizations that do consistent community outreach and organizing are able to integrate into their work and their outreach, work around around elections, around voter engagement, people are able to come out more, and we are able to actually create consistent patterns. So that's kind of this model that we've been experimenting with here at Oakland Rising, where as a collaborative, we, our collaborative of 8 organizations all work on very specific things, but how can we all together integrate into our programmatic work voter engagement? Yeah.
So I think like an example of like how IVE works is like if you were to talk about like wanting to become like a regular at your coffee place, like only then can you build a relationship with like a business or a coffee place if you're there every day and they know your name and they know your order. So it's just the more consistent you are with people, the more that you are likely to build a relationship with them. So when you ask them to vote that they will actually show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so, for us, this model of like, when we do voter outreach and voter engagement, we are mobilizing people. We're getting people to come out and do something. but how are we actually building power, like consistent power, with all this like hours and time and energy and money that's put into contacting voters? And like, how are we creating consistent leaders and like change makers in our community? And so, you know, that is really at the core of being able to have more of an integrated voter engagement strategy in our work. How are we building power so that, you know, every time it's an election season, it's not like a struggle to get someone to come through, but like these are people who know us, who trust us, and who are like ready to take action with us. And so one of like the core pieces of being able to do integrated voter engagement is what we call deep canvassing. And so, you know, this is a model in which we are more deeply listening to voters and the people that we're talking to about, you know, hopes, fears, aspirations for their community, for themselves, and like what it is that moves people. And in this, we're able to, you know, build connections and trust through these conversations. You know, this is, deep canvassing has also been like a really scientifically proven effective way to influence people. And really also how the people who are doing the outreach and talking to voters are being able to share their own personal story and their own like dreams, aspirations, goals for them and their community. And so being able to bridge both like the deep canvassing into the integrated voter engagement, where it's not just once or twice a year talking about elections, but consistently talking to our communities about issues affecting them and getting people to take action, that is like, yeah, at the core of like what we're envisioning the future of our work to really look like. And the core leader program that we're developing together is one of the key ways that we're able to do that.
Yeah. So our core leader program is also engaged with our collaboratives in order to get volunteers so that they can also support the work of our partners and also for Oakland Rising. And so the work for Oakland Rising is the things that we've come to consensus on, like the policies that we've pushed for in the past and the policies that we continue to push forward like right now. And some of those in the past have been like Measure T, right, to make sure that youth between like 16 before 18, when they would legally be able to vote, so they are able to vote for their school board supervisors. And another one that we're currently pushing for right now is funding for democracy dollars to ensure that people like us, either like working class or just like non-white collar jobs, people can afford to donate money towards campaigns, either for specific policies or for people who are running for office. Just because like, besides like people power is the main thing that we're working with, but the largest contributor to power within elections happens to be money, unfortunately. So democracy dollars just makes it a little bit more equitable, so people like you and I can afford to contribute to the things that we find most needed in our communities.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, what is kind of like the main goals, I guess, for the core leader program?
I think for me, one of the biggest things that I am looking for in the core leaders program is just to activate new leaders in our community, because I feel like one of the largest things that I feel is apathy. Like, I tend to feel like a lot of passion for trying to create more equity in my community, but then I end up feeling like I'm just one person, like what can I do? And I think the largest thing that we can do besides just like activating our own power is trying to awaken our other neighbors to know that like we're more powerful when we come together. So the more leaders that we can create in our communities that are willing to take action, the closer we come to creating like the equitable society that we all want to see.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also when our collaborative kind of came together and thought up the core leader program, it was this idea that came from our organizations post-pandemic have all really been transitioning back to like, how do we base build in person at the door with people in like a safe way, and in a new, or not new, but an evolved Oakland in a way that, you know, our issues are different, the context is different, like how we're being painted in the media is different. How are we continuing to like be relevant with people and meet people where they're at? And so the core leader program is meant to activate leaders within our, you know, collaborative in a way that is incorporating the integrated voter engagement. So like being able to do lots of deep listening at the door and build the basis of our our collaborative, as well as getting people involved into, you know, voter engagement and the civic engagement process. And so I think it's going to be really cool to like see how you know, the things that we're meant to train on is like how to activate volunteers, how to get people to like want to turn out to things like this. You know, time is like a very valued resource in our communities, and so how do we get this to be like a priority on the forefront for our community? And so yeah, there's lots of different issues that we are going to be talking about on the statewide, where there's like yeah, there's so many battles. So there's the defending Prop 47, again, like pitting that against our, you know, the public safety like doom loop narrative that is being cast upon Oakland, as well as yeah, just like what does it mean to, what does real public safety mean for our communities? And yeah, that's kind of like being able to train more leaders within our collaborative to be able to lead on doing this volunteer like activities. This canvassing, this phone banking is going to be exciting to see with this fall election. Yeah, I feel like I guess maybe Stevie, is there anything that like when you were first like getting involved in doing this type of like outreach or organizing work, what were some of the main things that really helped you to be like effective in the work that you were doing?
I think one of the things that has made me like more effective in my work is just knowing like the duty that we basically have to our community, because we have so many obstacles that want to basically make it harder for us to live in our communities. For example, knowing that like perhaps like not always, not to say that I advocate for the police or anything, but like sometimes in like not cracking down on like certain like crime is like a tool to perpetuate gentrification, right? And then we also have people in our communities that more so see like, not that like crime is okay, but they're like, but it'll keep my rent down, it'll make it more easy for me to continue to live in my neighborhood. So it's trying to like inform people about the things that are in turn harming the community is like not necessarily always in their best interest to just keep their community affordable, that there are other ways to keep their community affordable so that they can continue to live in their communities. So yeah, I would just say knowledge is power, especially like the more that you can spread it into your community as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think similarly when I first started doing community organizing and labor organizing work, I was like really sitting with this like deep like heartbreak about like who this like world was trying to tell me who that I was, as well as like just like learning about like the historical like the lineage of like fights that we've come from left me feeling so just like really heartbroken, and being able to find hope or like really feel like there was hope was able to move me out of that like a lot of pain and like a lot of which can lead to apathy, right? Like typically for most the way that we are like taught to deal with these things is
like capitalism separates us, capitalism pits us against each other.
Yeah, exactly. So like you just have to like look out for yourself and like just make it work, and also like this is just how it is and you need to like find your way to make it work for you. and being able to like really look at it and be like, no, this is not how it has to be. There is like things that we can do and like skills that we can learn together and people that we can bring into this to like change, yes, maybe change the policies in our city, maybe like have like do these changes, but also just change the ways that we're thinking, just like with our family and our friends and the people in our neighborhoods. You know, like it doesn't always look like this like big policy change, but like really just the narrative of like how we think, what we think is okay.
I think the other thing is like back to like knowledge is power, is like remembering our history, remembering our legacies of resistance, remembering our legacies of like wanting to fight despite like being fought with like violence, even if it's like direct like active violence or if it's like systemic, right? And it's like not allowing kids to go to a school that would like actually serve their needs, right? So I think it's just knowing that like we have that strength within us because like the previous generations had that strength as well, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and I'm hoping that's something that we can integrate into like what we are you know, doing with our core leader program. Another big part of our integrated voter engagement that we're going to be doing is our canvassing and outreach fellowship. So we're having a year-round canvassing team for the first time for Oakland Rising. So typically we have, you know, seasonal canvassers that come through like a couple times a year. And so now we get to have a team that's really out doing this deep canvassing work, doing the integrated voter engagement work on a year-round basis, so that we're able to just be more consistent and build more relationships in the communities that we're doing voter outreach in. And so I think that's kind of all we really wanted to talk about.
That's pretty much it. Well, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for our Monday meals. I hope that you're enjoying your lunch and that you enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.